The Stonewall Uprising, Pioneering Gay Rights. The Stonewall Uprising of 1969 was a movement that opened up the frontier of LGBTQ rights, featuring Marsha P. Johnson as one of the leading pioneers. The uprising was the catalyst for fighting against discrimination, especially from police, and it caused an increase in awareness not just for legal changes, but led to new conversations for the LGBT community. During this time period, sodomy laws played a huge part in the community as it dictated the lives of the LGBT community. Sodomy laws were specifically written and only applied to gay people. These laws made it okay to discriminate against people in the LGBT community. These laws were aimed to limit the ability of gay people to raise children, and they were used to justify denying gay parent custody of their own children. These laws were also used to justify refusing to let gay people become foster parents. Sodomy laws also were used to justify firing people, and these laws have been used in public debate, particularly denying gay people equal treatment and discrediting LGBTQ voices. Marsha P. Johnson was a black trans woman during the 1960s. She was born August 24, 1945, in Elizabeth, New Jersey. She was assigned male at birth and the fifth child out of seven born to an African American working class family. At a young age, Marsha knew her true identity as she started wearing girls' clothes at age 5, but stopped due to bullying and suffering a sexual assault from a preteen boy. Marsha attended Thomas A. Edison High School and moved to New York City with one bag of clothes and just $15. Once Marsha got to New York, she then resumed dressing in what made her feel best. Not only that, she also started going by the name of Marsha P. Johnson, the P in her name famously meaning pay it no mind, and that became her favorite phrase when referencing how people would ask to find out if she was male or female. While living in New York, she found work waiting tables and worked in drag shows. Marsha made friends, family, and an impact. She became very close and lifelong friends with Sylvia Rivera. It was said that Marsha was like a mother to Sylvia and many others within the LGBT community. She was a maternal influence on many individuals. However, it was hard being a black trans woman at this time, but really it was hard being a part of the LGBTQ community as a whole. Queer members experienced police bar raids in bars that were mainly a safe haven for queer members. They were trying to shut down the bars, and it became even more intense once the NYPD police had a new chief, Howard R. Leary. Introducing a quite famous bar was the Stonewall Inn. At the Stonewall Inn, a gay club located in Greenwich Village in New York City, the Stonewall Inn was a safe haven for queers as the place welcomed drag queens with open arms, especially many runaways and homeless gay youths. Early in the day of June 28, 1969, the patrons of the bar had enough of the police raids, as bars were often targeted in police raids, with those arrested often having their names and personal information published in local newspapers, leading to the loss of jobs and relationships.
The raid at the Greenwich Club was the catalyst for Stonewall riots. Protests and civil unrest have been present in New York City since the 1700s. In the 1900s, dozens of protests were held in this fiery city, with most regarding police brutality. This particular riot took place, the Stonewall Uprising took place in the early mornings of June 28, 1969. The NYPD raided the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich. This club was mostly known as a gay club. The police violently hauled employees and patrons out of the bars. The riots lasted up to 6 long days. Sylvia Rivera, a close friend of Marsha, said in an interview in 2001 that while she did not throw the first cocktail at the police, a long enduring myth, she did throw the second. For 6 days, the 17-year-old Rivera refused to go home or sleep, saying, "I'm not missing a minute of this. It is a revolution." At the club, police officers came into the club and proceeded to rough up the patrons. The NYPD arrested 13 people that were violating the state's gender-appropriate clothing statute. In the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, police officers would arrest LGBTQ people based on an informal 3-article rule, which is a rule that states a person has to wear 3 articles of the gender they were assigned at birth. Female police officers would take the suspected cross-dressing patrons to the bathroom to check their sex. After the tense and physical interactions, as he be suspected, angry patrons and neighborhood residents hung outside the bar, and they got more agitated by the constant police harassment. During all the commotion, Marsha P. Johnson was a prominent leader within the local gay community. As the riots broke out, Johnson's frustration about the exclusion of LGBTQ people grew. She actively spoke out about transphobia in the early gay rights movement to be a part of the change. She was known as a force behind the Stonewall riots. Following the Stonewall riots, Marsha and her friend Sylvia Rivera launched the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, also known as STAR. After the Stonewall riots, they made it a cornerstone of the area and a resource for young, homeless transgender individuals. Unfortunately, Marsha P. Johnson was declared deceased on July 6, 1992. The provided date is more often recognized as the day she was discovered floating in the Hudson River than it was the day she actually died. Marsha was a trailblazer as she and Rivera founded Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, STAR, an organization that is committed to saving young transgender persons who have been abandoned by their families in the late 70s. The search also led to the discoveries of Star House, a place where transgender youths can reside and feel safe. By being a co-founder of Star, Marsha impacted young transgender youth's lives by providing a safe and cultivating space for transgender individuals to grow. The Stonewall riots left a mark that cannot be forgotten. On the 1 year mark of the uprising, people came together to celebrate the first ever Pride Parade. Further celebrations to keep the spirit alive were further implemented during an Eastern Regional Conference of Homophile Organizations in 1969. A young activist, Ellen Brody, called for nationwide demonstrations each June to honor Stonewall. The marches that resulted from the uprising were outlets for people to express their queer sexuality as well for allies to show their support to the community. As the marches continued, more people would join. People like politicians joined as well. After the first march, the progression grew fast as federal exclusions of gays and lesbians began to be lifted after 17 years of it being enforced. In addition to that, medical professionals reversed the long held belief that homosexuals needed psychiatric treatment. From the uprising, activism, and support of the LGBTQ community grew. Organizations like the Gay Liberation Front and Gay Activist Alliance were formed in an effort to gain equal rights in many sectors. Although the Gay Liberation Front only lasted a few years, it was burning brightly at that time, with a variety of issues to fight for, such as AIDS and HIV in 1981. Even with medical advancements, approximately 40,000 people were diagnosed with HIV alone in 2015. According to the Human Rights Campaign, Latino and Black men who have same-sex intercourse have a 25% chance to contract HIV. The Stonewall Uprising was a frontier that addressed the issues and discrimination against LGBTQ members. The uprising itself was the push needed to fight for LGBTQ rights. Marsha P. Johnson was a pioneer and activist for the LGBTQ plus community, but there is still an ever-going battle within the community. As we are a part of the youth in this world, we would like to see the world move forward as far as being a frontier within history. People of the LGBTQ plus community still face struggles more and more every day. With pioneers like Marsha P. Johnson, who started a difficult conversation and paved the way for Black people who are specifically a part of the LGBTQ plus community, our hope is that people will still have Marsha's strength and pioneering spirit to keep knocking down the doors that block the LGBTQ community.
You may see movies, you may see TV shows. When you see depictions of the Stonewall riots, you see white gay men.
Yes.
Not true.
That's just not it.
It was the Black transgender, the Latino transgender, and the drag queens who were the forefront of the Stonewall riots.
The Stonewall Uprising involved protests where breaking barriers for things that were seen as abnormal by society was a frontier towards the LGBTQ rights movement. As we as a society continue to break down barriers, like Mr. Walker, who is the lead organizer of Joey Baltimore, a resource committed to support homeless LGBT youths, we are continuing to make strides into the movement where Marsha P. Johnson started from the Stonewall Uprising.